So in today's session, we will be discussing about India's agricultural export and import data. Now, why is that? Why is this in news? Of course, because the Department of Commerce, that data has come out. The Department of Commerce has released the data for the export import of the agricultural products. Okay, and that data has revealed a dip. It has revealed agricultural exports declined by 8.2%. So the exports have declined by 8.2%. At the same time, with respect to imports have also dropped down by about the same percent. Imports have dropped down by 7.9%. Now the major reason for the drop of exports is due to the government curbs on various commodities. Curbs as in banning the exports of certain commodities. So we will see under what situation does government ban the exports of certain commodities, why is there a need to do so, should we do that, should we not do that, all these things we'll see. At the same time, we will see why the imports have also dropped down. Now, dropping down of imports is fine, but then again there are other repercussions of that as well. We'll see what all those things are. Before we dig deep into this particular data, there are few things which you need to remember and look at the data with respect to these contexts which I will tell you now. In fact, look at, when you talk about solutions, challenges and solutions, that also be decided keeping all these things in mind. Okay, so when it comes to agricultural export and import, first things first, there will be two things. What we want. What we want, in what we want actually there will be two things. We would want certain things to increase and certain thing to decrease. So here it's very simple. We would want export to increase, but we would want import to decrease. This is what we want. Right, so we have presently, now let's see what all we want, let's list it down so that we understand what we have to do in the future. We understand this data also, whether it's good or bad, and what we can do in the future. So exports should increase, right? This is clear. We are talking about with respect to agricultural exports, they should increase. When it comes to imports, imports should decrease, right? Now why exports should increase? They should increase because then they would lead to increase foreign exchange, forex reserves, plus increase in farmers' income and income of the others involved. Farmers' income would increase, foreign exchange would increase, other people's exporters, middlemen, all their income would increase. Middlemen as in I am talking about the legal ones, the wholesale traders, so on and so forth. Now, imports should decrease. Why? So that the import bill goes down. Right? So this is pretty clear. This is what we want. This is what we want. But let's look at other things also. There is one reason because of which we may want exports to decrease. Now please understand, in the recent the report that has come out, because of this various articles have been there. That article does not talk about this reason why should the export decrease, but this I am talking about with reference to the economic survey. Economic survey. They did not directly say that the exports should decrease, but they gave a very eye-opening thing which is happening because of huge amount of agricultural exports. They have said that in context with the overall export, which I will explain. So because of export, what happens? Let's say India exports a lot of things. Agricultural goods is just products is just one of the things. We also export various other things. Now what kind of things we export is very important. Why? Because we are, let's say, exporting rice. When we are exporting rice, we are in a sense exporting water also. Now why is that the case? That is the case because a huge quantity of water is required to grow rice. Okay, around 2 tons of water is required to grow 1 kg of rice in India. Right, so if we are exporting this kind of product and we are importing certain technologies, certain finished goods which require less water. So rice, when you export, it requires more water. Certain finished goods which we import, it requires less water. Right. So what is happening when we are exporting these kind of things and importing these kind of things? India has become a net exporter of water. Exporter of water. So economic survey talked about, yes, we want to increase the exports, we want to increase the farmers' income, we want to increase foreign exchange, but then there are other ways to do that, other products, other services to export which should also be looked at. So then foreign exchange problem will be resolved if we are exporting certain other things, right? At the same time, farmers' income also we have to increase, but then we should at least, instead of rice, let's export certain other things which require less water. That's point number 1. Point number 2, grow rice in an area which the area is not a drought prone area, right? Where already a lot of rain comes. So all these things we have to do. This is one small argument which you should know, especially, if you are wanting to add some value added point. It is not a very big deal because of which we will directly try to actually reduce the exports. No, we won't do this, but you should know, especially with respect to your mains, interviews. Now, when it comes to imports, there is one reason why we would want to have increased imports also. Right? I want to give you this dilemma, that we want increased exports, decrease exports, we want increased imports, decrease imports, and there are reasons for that. Why do we want increased imports? Because if there is a shortage of something, the prices of that will go up, then the consumer, the domestic consumer will protest, will shout, will not like it, and we are a democracy. Voting is there, elections are there. So when the prices are high, the government will feel the heat. Actually guys, the government feels the heat when the prices are high and they don't want that to happen. So then they will start importing so that the consumer do not face the increased prices. So because of that, you would want more imports of agricultural products for reduced prices. Right? Now see the challenge in front of the government. We can just, sit in front of the TV and say they should do this, they should do that. But these are the conflicting things which the government wants for the betterment. Exports should increase, exports should decrease, imports should decrease, imports should increase. Now keeping that in mind, let's dig now into the data which is given. Okay, so what is the current scenario, current status of agriculture export? Export has declined substantially, 8.9%. Okay, this we have known. Now the drop comes after a record-breaking performance. There was a record-breaking performance previous year of 53.15. Now it has come down to 48.82. So anyhow, one thing you need to understand, since it was a record-breaking thing, so next year it would have anyhow grown lesser. But what has happened? It has rather gone down by a significant amount, very close to 10%. So that's a good amount of drop actually. Now, declined commodities. Which are the commodities that have declined? One is sugar exports. Why sugar exports have declined? Simply because there was a ban. No sugar exports were allowed from October 2023 till the end of the fiscal year. So what will happen? Reducing the export to 2.82 from 5.77. So it has halved. There's a difference between directly of almost $3 billion. So ban on the exports of sugar, that is one thing. Non-basmati rice exports, right? So concerns were there with respect to availability of the rice in the country itself for the domestic consumer. So what do? You say that only export basmati rice, do not export non-basmati rice. Okay, so sort of again a ban on the export of non-basmati rice. Now currently only pre-boiled grain shipments are permitted within non-basmati segments. Okay, so again the ban has been lifted, but still there are certain restrictions. Now because of these restrictions, you can see that record of 6.3 billion, now it has come down to 4.57 billion, again almost $2 billion of decline, right? Then wheat export, right? Wheat export has also gone down, plummeting to $56.74 million from $2.2 billion. So it has declined drastically from 2.12 to $56 million. It is like just 25% of what it actually was. Then the onion exports. Onion export, it was also banned. Recently the ban was lifted, but still for some time the ban was there, as a result of which again the onion exports would go down. So as we are seeing, the reason for the decline in exports is the ban. Is the ban or the restriction. Now the reason of the ban or the restriction being that if you keep exporting, lesser amount will be there in India and the product will get costlier for the domestic consumer. The government doesn't want that. And also election year, this is the election year. So 23-24 fiscal, when it is about to end, immediately after that election started, right? So of course you need to keep that in mind. Now this, because of ban and restriction, this is what has happened. So basmati rice, as I said, basmati rice was allowed to export, but non-basmati there was ban, and then now the ban is lifted, but certain restrictions are still there. Now as far as since basmati rice was allowed to be exported, so there may be a good export of basmati rice. So as we see with respect to basmati rice and spices, the exports saw growth. This point is very important, because since most of the things is going down, and if something during such period goes up, that statement becomes very important for your prelims examination, because then they will write that this went down, this export went down, this export went up. You should know what is that thing which went up. So basmati rice and spices have seen a growth. Okay. Now when it comes to imports, as we saw, witnessed a 7.9% dip during this fiscal year. So almost similar dip is there over here also. Now, why has there been a decline? The significant decline was largely due to what? Single commodity, that is edible oil. The prices of this edible oil drastically came down, as a result of which the imports have come down. Okay, so imports we do a lot of import of the edible oil. After COVID, the prices were high, and then there was Russia-Ukraine war, so the prices went higher. It peaked at that moment, and afterwards it then suddenly came down. Since it suddenly came down, our import bills got drastically reduced. Okay, so you can see this exact numbers and all you don't have to remember, you just need to remember the trend. What happened? India imports edible oil. After COVID, the prices went up. Then there was Russia-Ukraine war, because of which it peaked, and after that last year it fell down. Since it fell down, we benefited by reducing our import bill due to the reduced prices of the pulses. Now, what are the key factors influencing India's exports and imports? What are the factors that is increasing the imports, reducing the imports, or increasing the exports, reducing the exports? We'll see that. One is export restriction. Either you are banning or restricting. When you restrict that, your exports are going to come down. Why do you do that? To avoid the food inflation, so that consumer in India does not find it costlier. That is one reason. Another thing is global price movements. In case of edible oil, we saw the prices went up, now they went down. We are not having much control over that. Right? So global price movement is one of the reasons why prices change, fluctuate. If the price of something we are exporting is going up, it benefits us. If the price of something we are importing goes up, we do not benefit, we pay the price, right? So that is there. And the events which did that in the last few years is the COVID pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war. Okay? Then government policies. Government policy also plays a very important role. Now the government also always have to do a trade-off. Okay, should I import and increase the import bill, or should I not import and it's okay if the prices go up, right? So all these things the government has to actually balance. So government policy becomes very important over here. Okay, and one more thing is the government can provide subsidy also. You import and then provide subsidy for the consumer. So then what will happen? See, there are few choices to the government. Import or not import. Now, if you do not import, prices will go up. If you import, the prices can come down. Okay, but if the import is costly, then what? Then even after importing, the prices will be up. So then what you do? You import plus you provide subsidy also. And when you do that, you are importing as well, spending money there as well, plus providing subsidy as well. So again, spending money there as well. So what would be the solution? We'll see later, but presently this is the situation. Government policy also impacts a lot. So policy instability and double standards. Now this double standards, of course, probably the article uses this word, probably we can have a better word, a conflicting policy sort of, because the government has to manage both. The government has to ensure it safeguards its industry from a huge amount of import, but it also has to import to safeguard the consumer from the increased prices. So these are conflicting challenges which the government has to do. And as a result of which you will see instability and double standards. So probably I would recommend in exam, instead of writing double standards, which has a very negative connotation to it, you can write policy instability and conflicting approach. This is a better word, conflicting approach. And then you can explain what this conflicting approach is, and there is a need, sort of a need for that. Okay. Conflicting goals. See, finally they have mentioned over here, they have expanded over here and mentioned the conflicting approach, and they have also talked about promoting domestic crop diversification to less water intensive and import substitution crops. Whatever you are importing, start growing that in India only, so that you don't have to import much, and whatever you are exporting, make it less water intensive should be exported, or even if it is water intensive, more efficiently it should be grown. Like that you have to proceed. Now, what are the challenges in India's export-import policy? Number one, subsidy-centric scheme. Historically, it has so happened that if the price of anything goes up, the first thing the government does is provide subsidy, and that is not wrong. That is absolutely not wrong. Why? Because to address any issue, there are two things you have to do. One is you have to do correction, and the other thing is you have to do corrective action. See, what is correction? Immediately if there is a need for something, you address it then and there so that it does not hamper you. So if the prices have gone up, you immediately import, you can immediately import. Maybe at times import may also take time, so you immediately provide subsidy, or you do both. These are immediate short-term actions. Immediate short-term actions is your correction to address the situation right there. What is a corrective action? Corrective action is long-term, which ensures that this kind of a situation does not arise. So what will be the corrective action? The corrective action would be increased production, increased efficiency, increased production. This will be the long-term. So both the things have to be done, but what happens is you provide a lot of subsidy and you become habitual of providing subsidies. So whenever the prices keep going up, you provide subsidy after subsidy after subsidy, and you are not focusing on this, and that is an issue that should not happen. Short term you are doing this, but your vision should always be long term to address it, so that this particular thing can be eliminated gradually. That should be the approach. Then we have inadequate R&D investment. What will happen by R&D investment? When you do R&D investment, things like HYV seeds can come up. HYV seeds were already there. We did not invent it as such. Norman Borlaug did it, and we utilize it. We have to borrow it. We have to, buy it. There is another cost to the farmers for that. Now, a lot of companies, Monsanto for example, Monsanto sells HYV seeds and earns millions of dollars of profit for India, and they claim it as agricultural income and pay no taxes also. So that's a taxing agricultural income is a completely different topic altogether. We'll do it some other day. but this is the scenario. So we should have our own adequate research and development investment so that we can come out with better varieties, more resilient crops, better productivity, so on and so forth. That would be the vision for long-term increased efficiency and production. Then further, quality and standards. When it comes to exports, the importing country, the countries which will import from India would expect better quality and standards, so we need to focus on that as well. And competitiveness. What is competitiveness? You are providing better, improved, increased quality, increased standards and reduced price. If you can do that, your product is competitive. These are the criteria for that. Balancing interests and long-term goals. As I said, balancing the short-term interest and the long-term goals. Subsidy imports versus the increased efficiency and productivity. Also, the government should have strategic buffer stocks and market intervention. Now, the government does have strategic buffer stock, but presently the strategic buffer stock is only for wheat and rice. Why? Because these are the part of the Food Security Act. So the government can have buffer stock of certain other things as well. That is what the article talks about. Plus, now, so we have seen this challenges we have seen. Now these are the steps. In steps, balancing short-term, long-term interest, having strategic buffer stock. Presently, wheat and rice is only there. We can have for other things as well. Then focusing on farmers' welfare, doubling farmers' income by improving the exports as well, right? Support domestic consumer. Now when the production efficiency increases, the prices will also not go up, so that will benefit the domestic consumer also. Fine. Productivity enhancement, it's a long-term measure. If you are writing an answer in giving certain measures, you can divide your measures in long-term and short-term to give better clarity to the evaluator. Diversifying export baskets. Do not just export only one thing, start exporting other things. Start exporting things that are costlier also. That is also very important. Okay. Then finally, you have the infrastructure development. A very big example or a very important example of infrastructure development, if I have to give, I will tell you cold storage facility. Cold storage facility. Why? Because it is as good as non-existent in India. Cold storage facility. And because of this, guys, there is a huge amount of wastage. If you would look at in the horticultural sector, fruits, vegetables and all, about 20% is wasted. It's a huge amount. 20% is wasted. So this is a very big thing we are talking about. Of course, in addition to this, various other infrastructure development of canals, facility, transportation, logistics, roads, this, that, freight corridor, everything, plus the cold storage facility to avoid these wastages and proper storage and efficiency. Then you can look at the international best practices. So if you look at top 2 countries, the Netherlands talking about, let's say, efficient logistics, emphasis in innovation. Again, innovation comes from investment in research and development. Same with if you look at the United States. So they have provided with development initiatives and technical assistance. Again, technical assistance meaning use of technology, research and development is required. So imports, subsidies, short-term things is fine, but for the long-term, research, development, investment, infrastructure, increase in efficiency and productivity is the way forward. So this is how we can interpret the entire data that has been released. Very important for your mains examination. Plus prelims, things like, we understood that the export and import have gone down, but the export of basmati rice and spices have gone up. A very important point for you to remember for your prelims, and this entire topic is extremely important for your mains. And of course, interview there is a lot of time now, but it's a very important topic. The weightage of agriculture in UPSC in the last 5 years have drastically increased. So make sure you watch it completely and make certain notes out of it to get the better results. Thank you.